It's a great first reading from St. Paul in chapter 2, verse 5 to his letter to the Philippians. It's many call it an early Christian hymn. It's one has a priest that I pray probably once a week. It's usually one of the prayers that we pray during even prayer. It begins with a request by St. Paul to have yourselves the same attitude, the same mind, to think and to act along the same lines of Jesus Christ. And then he spells out what that attitude is. Though he was in the form of God, which is just a fancy way of saying, though he is God. He is God without limits, the God through nothingness. Creation comes into the world by his word, by his will. God that is all powerful, glory and majesty. What is his attitude? Well, rather to empty himself. Meaning that he didn't lose the divinity, but he kind of let the divinity I don't know if this is the best way of putting it, kind of take a back seat. The power and the glory and the majesty of the divinity kind of suppressed it. Maybe it might be a good way of saying. So he always had it, never lost it. But instead, he humbled himself and he took on our humanity. So now what you see with your own eyes, what you see is what looks like just a regular human person. But he's not, he's a divine person. But still, what you see is another like you and I with a head and eyes and hands and a body that's prone to tiredness and a body that's prone to suffering, a body that is prone to weakness. That God had all the power, strips himself of the power, puts it aside and embraces our human likeness, our human appearance. And how far does he go with it? Well, he was born, he was an infant, and he suffered and died. So God, though he was in the form of God, Jesus Christ, what did he decide to do? He decided to embrace our limitations and to embrace our weakness and to really carry out to its fullness. He was like us in all things but sin. Makes you kind of think how we especially today, today's power grab day, right? Today's people looking to attain offices and to obtain power. And what does our Jesus do? In just a couple weeks, we're going to celebrate the feast of Christ the King. What does he do? Takes the form of a slave. The one being who had every right to come in and horses and riches and fame and power. The only one who really deserves all that comes into poverty, comes into weakness. That's the mind and the attitude of Christ. Kind of makes us reset our priorities and to reset our way of life and way of being. You know, we are so prone to want to get noticed and to want to get appreciated and to be liked and to be exalted. That's what we seek, you and I as human beings. It's what we want. But it's not the mind and the attitude of Christ. Christ came, he became human and embraced the cross. But after it's all said and done, he is exalted. And at his name, every knee should bend. But it's the Father who exalts. It's the Father who takes the lowly and exalts them. It's not us who does the exalting. Again, we try to exalt. Look what I did. Look at me. Notice me. Like me. It's the Father who does all that. The Father will exalt the one whose mind and his heart is intently set on carrying out his will. The one who is exalted, the one who carries out the will of the Father will be exalted by the Father, probably won't be exalted here on earth. Don't expect the world to exalt you if you really intent on following God and following his will, to seek truth and to do what is right. Don't look for the exaltation by our fellow peers here and now. But the Father will exalt you. He won't ignore you. Take on that mind and attitude of Jesus Christ. May God bless you.